Sadly, the biggest news in the music world this week has been the deaths of 3 icons, Sick of It All's Lou Koller, Glen Hansard, and Kavinsky. We'll be paying tribute to all 3 of them and talking Lollapalooza, Autotune, the 30th anniversary of Alice in Chains' Unplugged album, and more. I'm Dave, I'm here with Andrew, and you're listening to BV Weekly. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Dave.
You phoning in from Lollapalooza?
I was about to ask you the same thing. I'm home in New York. I'm sure I'll be streaming this weekend. What about you?
I am home in New York, and I am not sure if I will be streaming this weekend.
Well, you might have like going out of the house plans, and I don't, so.
Well, Lollapalooza actually started. We record Thursday. Today's the first day, and Friday, when this comes out, is second day. Goes till Sunday. Smashing Pumpkins are headlining. Did you see if they're streaming? Are they on the stream schedule?
I didn't look. I guess way to put me on the spot. Something I haven't fact checked. But hopefully they bring out another member of the Brady Bunch.
Oh yeah, what just happened?
They just did a song with the person from the Brady Bunch.
And Flavor Flav warm-up show for Lala.
Yeah. I mean, this is a hometown headlining festival performance for them. I feel like they're gonna pull some stops. I want to say real quick, if you are at the festival, then maybe you're not listening to this podcast episode, but in case you're tossing it on while you're having your breakfast on Friday morning, I want to give a shout out to 5 smaller artists that are not to miss, that are playing earlier in the day, that are worth getting there early for. I've been to a lot of festivals. I understand the struggle is real. You get there in the evening, but if you're going, don't miss High Vis, Wisp, Die Spitz, Momma, and Water From Your Eyes. That's my list of 5. High Vis we're especially big fans of, and they're coming all the way over from the UK. They had to cancel a tour recently. Awesome melodic kind of hardcore / rock band. So don't miss those if you're going. And obviously you're going to see all the cool big stuff too.
You missed a few small bands that people might not realize are playing. I also want to give a shout out to Geese, up and coming New York band, not to miss.
People may not realize you're joking.
Rising emo band Hot Mulligan are on there, as well as Turnstile, good hardcore band, not to miss, and the XX. I heard they're good.
Oh yeah, like a up and coming kind of like indie thing, right?
Yes, 2 X's in the name, like XX. There's actually some similarity. I was like, we've discussed. I was at Gov Ball in June, which is also in the same family of Live Nation owned festivals, and so not surprisingly, this festival and that festival have some similarities, such as Hot Mulligan being one of the only, well, I'm going to eat these words, but one of the only punk bands besides Turnstile.
Well, and also Die Spitz and High Vis, who we just named, but what definitely, I think the only emo band.
Well, yeah, in the short list, Hot Mulligan, they're on like every fest. But then also a similarity, Geese and Clips on the same day.
Also a similarity, Slater playing way too early and probably going to have the size crowd of an artist who could have been playing at 8 o'clock.
Right. Like these things all get booked at the same time. And
she's the sudden rise in the pop world this year. So the Chaperone of 2026, except not exactly, because Slater's been at it, but similar in that I don't think her rise was predictable. Like this album she's been blowing up. So I'm sure that's going to be a packed set. I'm sure we're going to see videos of the crowd on social media with this exactly predictable captions, but it'll be really good for her, and I'm sure she'll be a blast.
When that happened for Chaperone, that was like the height of this trend a little bit, and I feel like that really hit. Everyone was like, whoa, look at that overhead crowd for Chaperone. I don't care who it is, it doesn't hit the same anymore.
I agree. To me, it's like a meme now. Like I just saw footage of Citizen at Warped Tour. Citizen at Warped Tour in Long Beach. And they did have like an impressively massive crowd. I'm not going to say it wasn't impressively massive, but it was like the same thing. And I sent it to you and joked like the Chaperone of emo.
Yeah, is there any more to that? That was pretty impressive. I will say I was at a minimum, I was happy to see Citizen playing to such a huge crowd. Just leave it at that. But were they direct support for the headliner?
I didn't look into it. Warped Tour doesn't have headliners though. They actually, that's like a thing. They don't book their set times that way. But they could have been on right before somebody huge. Who knows? But they've also just been grinding for so long, accumulating more and more fans. And Warped Tour is where probably a lot of those fans are all convening in one place. Whereas Hot Mulligan, my guess is at Lollapalooza, they will be playing to a lot of people who are not like Warped Tour attendees.
Or not that many people who are Warped.
or not that many people, right?
Yeah, their set at Gov Ball wasn't huge, but it was crazy and exciting and fun. And
I mean, they are the chosen ones right now. They're getting all the non-punk festivals, correctly, because they are like leading an entire new wave of emo and pop punk. So, glad to see them winning.
Really good live show. Bad name though. Bad name that kept me from taking them seriously for way too long.
I mean, their song names are worse.
I know. Yeah. At least for me personally, I've said this before, but it held me back from even pressing play for a long time. And now I'm a super fan.
I see. Well, someone was like, "Oh, there's a Hot Mulligan show," and you were like, "Why would I watch?" But that's the name of one of their albums.
Oh, whew! That's me putting my hand over my head. It's been a really heavy and sad week. As we said in the intro, we lost some legends, some greats, all sudden. Well, a couple of them were pretty sudden, and two of them, especially for me, Lou Koller and Glen Hansard, I have long histories and have meant a lot to me. They're throughout their careers.
Yeah, I mean, this is just so heartbreaking for so many people in the punk and hardcore community, for both of us. I've just been watching tributes pour into Lou all over social media. Obviously, basically every person you can think of from New York hardcore has paid tribute. I also thought it was really cool to see all the tributes that have come in from just these massive bands that Lou has touched or helped pave the way for, like including Rancid, AFI, Rise Against, Korn, Hatebreed, Dashboard Confessional, and NoFX, and probably so many others I'm forgetting or didn't see. But it's just I think what's really unique about Sick of It All is, they obviously came from the 80s New York hardcore scene, and I think so many great 80s hardcore bands just have one or two albums and then they break up, right? That's so common. And actually, I was reading about Sick of It All over the weekend, just brushing up on some fun facts. And I didn't know this, but I guess when they signed their record deal for their first album, they signed a 7-album deal, which is crazy to think. And they were just we figured we'd break up after one anyway, so it didn't matter to us. Of course, they didn't. So I think that was kind of unique for them. They were kind of one of the first hardcore bands to kind of show what it takes to be a hardcore lifer, they were just in it for about 40 years straight and never really slowed down figuratively and literally. And that's why they've been there for so many bands, obviously their debut album, Blood, Sweat, and No Tears from 1989, is for many people the one, the classic, up there with so many other classics by so many other New York hardcore bands or 80s hardcore bands in general. But the difference again is they just kept churning them out. I mean, honestly, I almost might like 90s Sick of It All even more so than the earlier stuff. And they were a band who took so many bands that went on to get really big on tour. Everybody talks about them in such a positive way. People say things people in the hardcore scene talk. There's a lot of behind your back stories. Someone like Lou doesn't have those. He's just people were saying these. Obviously, when you die, people. But I'm tempted to believe it. I mean, he and the band seem to have been just such a positive presence. So many good albums. I saw them live. I'm too young to have seen them in the early days, so I saw them way later on, and they were just still absolutely crushing it, like any hardcore band, any great hardcore band would. This one is painful for a lot of people in punk and hardcore.
Yeah, and for me, they are a band I saw in the 90s, I saw in the 2000s, I saw in the 2010s, and I saw in the 2020s. It partly has to do with growing up, Blood, Sweat, and No Tears, and then some of those other early albums were important to myself and my friend group at the time. when we were first discovering hardcore. Sick of It All was like the band, one of our bands. And I still have friends to this day they don't listen to 99% of the music that I continue to listen to, let alone like a single 2026 album. But like Sick of It All is one of those bands that we've never not had in common. It's like Sick of It All is touring again where they never stop. But should we go? You know, like that's has been a 30 plus year consistent kind of thing in my life. And I think, we're also big Life of Agony fans. And in recent years, Sick of It All, even though they, these aren't, Life of Agony also kind of come from New York hardcore sort of, but these weren't necessarily associated bands in the earlier years, but they really like formed this friendship in more recent years. And Life of Agony and Sick of It All did multiple tours together. It made so much sense. And of course, we were never missing those. I was going to say, regarding, you said they signed this 7 album deal. This is when they signed to a major in the early 90s for their first major label album was like Scratch the Surface, which is also one of their more popular records and highly loved records. And that was like the original Turnstile moment, I think, for hardcore. There was no bigger hardcore band, I don't think, than Sick of It All, right? It was like, even when Turnstile became big in recent years, people have tried to figure out like who Turnstile have become bigger than any hardcore band in history, I think. Would you agree?
It depends on your definition of hardcore.
Right. I guess.
But just I'm talking about the deal with Relativity Records, which I don't know if that was a major then. I guess I'm looking. It is owned by Sony. Now it doesn't exist. It was owned by Sony at one point. But Blood, Sweat, and No Tears came out on that label. It wasn't like, I don't think they were big yet.
I don't know what the year they became big per se, in quotes, but they became big.
They became big, but I think that was like in, I mean, you were there and I wasn't, but I don't mean to but like, I think they like started getting big in the 90s.
What did I say? I'm talking about Scratch the Surface that came out in 1994.
They signed to the deal I'm talking about. They signed for Blood, Sweat, and No Tears.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They signed the 7 album deal when they were like kids. And they were just like, we're probably going to break up like everybody else.
I was definitely assuming you meant their major label deal.
Oh, no. I mean, like before that. I think they must have bought out of that deal when they did go, yeah. Right, because Scratch the Surface came out on East West, and that was a proper major, I think. Yeah. So I mean, like, yeah, before that, they just signed some 7 album deal, which is like, I'm sure anybody would criticize, like anybody would try to sway some young hardcore band from signing a 7 album deal, and like they're probably 20 years old. Right. To your point, Scratch the Surface on a major with artwork that makes them look like some MTV metal band. Accusations of selling out happened. Very much a proto-Turnstile moment for sure. That was when they toured with Korn, who weren't huge yet, but still were. I feel like Korn were on their clearly going to be huge, and it was maybe. I don't know what the hardcore community thought of that, but different. They were touring with bigger metal bands and stuff like that. I do think that was a proto-Turnstile moment.
Yeah, proto-Turnstile moment, but also what I'm trying to say too is before there was a Turnstile, this was like one of hardcore's biggest moments. So I'm just comparing like how everyone says the Turnstile broke through, the Turnstile moment, Turnstile brought hardcore with them. This was Sick of It All was maybe the biggest band before that. Hatebreed also in the running, of course, I think, for biggest hardcore band.
I mean, AFI that's why I'm like, it depends on what your definition of hardcore is.
Yes, it definitely depends on your definition, I guess, but if you're throwing AFI in there. But in early 1993, Scratch the Surface became the band's first album to chart, debuting at number 67 in Germany. The Scratch the Surface video debuted on MTV's Headbangers Ball on December 10th, 1994, while the Step Down video in a feat described as previously unimaginable by Metal Hammer, entered rotation on MTV. The album is their highest performing album, selling over 250,000 copies, at least according to this quote, and receiving generally positive reviews upon its release. Decibel, in an interview with Decibel, Pete said he considered Scratch the Surface to be Sick of It All's most important album as it pushed the band up into a higher realm of songwriting and popularity.
And Step Down is still their most streamed song on Spotify with over 8 million. Nothing else comes close, really. The song Scratch the Surface has 5 million, and then nothing else comes close. Like, for example, at least two bands have covered Sick of It All these past few days. Drain at Warped Tour, and also Judge at a smaller show. And they both did It's Clobbering Time, like from the first EP or demo, whatever, like, and then again on Blood, Sweat, No Tears. But like, I feel like that's, well, it's also an easy song to play, but I feel like that's like maybe a go-to classic for the hardcore scene. But then you realize like actually Step Down is their biggest song.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, Drain, one of the leading hardcore bands now, who came up in the wake of the Turnstile moment, or at least got more popular in that. Of course, they're going to pay respect. And then the Judge thing, though, we got to give that a little more context. That was actually kind of insane timing. So every year, Civ from Gorilla Biscuits and Civ, etc., does this tattoo convention. He's also a tattoo. He owns a tattoo shop. He does this tattoo convention at Terminal 5. He rents the venue here in New York City, or he at least did this 2 years in a row, last year and this year, where he also booked these amazing old school hardcore lineups shows on the roof of Terminal 5, which there's not usually shows up there that I know. But instead of having them on the stage, probably because that room is filled with like people giving tattoos and stuff, he rents the actual roof and has these small shows. I went last year. I was hoping to go this year again to night one, which was Judge, Negative Approach, and Bold, all legendary hardcore bands on the same show, all bands who would have played with Sick of It All and in the early days and be good friends with Sick of It All. And anyway, so the news of, we haven't really given this full context. Lou Koller, he had been battling esophageal cancer for 2 years. There were many updates, ups and downs. At one point they said he was cured, then they said it came back. It's been bad for a while. So Lou's passing was not exactly a surprise. It wasn't like, you wouldn't say it's sudden. It was 2 years of benefits and positive and negative and sad news along the way. But the news of him actually passing came pretty much simultaneously with doors opening for this Judge, Negative Approach, Bold show in the middle of Manhattan, New York City, home of Sick of It All. The New York hardcore scene was assembling on that roof of Terminal 5 that night, whether this news happened or not. So that was like, wow, this is kind of an unofficial gathering that was somehow miraculously pre-planned. And it was at this show that, no surprise, Judge. I wasn't there. I was planning on going. I'm sad I missed it. But the Judge did that cover right then, hours after the sad news broke. If you want to watch the video of Judge doing that, Civ comes up on stage too, though I think Civ came up by the time they had transitioned into Judge song. We actually compiled a ton of tributes from ones we've mentioned and many, many more in a article, blog post on BrooklynVegan.com. So you could look for that. The video's in there as well. You could read so many touching tributes and just see like the scope of people who came out to pay their respects on social media for Lou and Sick of It All. And as far as listening, so I've just been listening to a lot of Sick of It All the past few days.
Me too.
There's the obvious ones. Blood, Sweat, and No Tears absolutely is going to just always be my favorite and most recognizable one to me. I didn't always keep up with, especially in more recent years, necessarily the many Sick of It All albums that have come out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, they've got 11 full lengths alone, not to mention EPs and live albums and whatnot. You said your favorites are in the 90s. I don't know I think this one's a little underrated personally. Came out in 2000 called Yours Truly. Just revisiting. I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
It kind of, I don't know how to describe it in like what makes it different than other Sick of It albums, but it has this kind of like lo-fi thing.
Well, that was when they left the major and they went to Fat Records for a Call to Arms, which came out right before it. So I guess, and they did that one with Steve Evans, the legendary Steve, who's actually, who's dealing with some, oh man, I'm just going to look this up real quick. I'm just going to say it. He's lost his studio in a fire, and he's you could donate to help him out. There's a GoFundMe. Steve is a legend, producer for Dead Guy, Dillinger Escape Plan, Saves the Day, Wonder Years, Lifetime. So they did that one with Steve Evans, who definitely takes like a more raw approach.
Raw, that might be a good word that I'm using. Lo-fi, raw.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't start there by any means, but if you already have an appreciation for hardcore and Sick of It All, definitely, give Yours Truly a spin.
I agree that's a good one. I'll say, like, again, I was born in the 90s, so 80s hardcore is something I came to like after the 80s. And so for me, like going back to stuff that I just wasn't born for, I feel like there's often like the classic album was already chosen for you. They're like, you just know, like, start here because this is what everybody says. To be honest, I didn't get Sick of It All right away because I didn't love Blood, Sweat, and No Tears. And I just thought that was the one I was like, if I don't love this one, I guess that's it. I think the production's a little too 80s for me. So I think that was part of it, is like Built to Last might be my favorite. And that came out in 97. I like a lot of punk from that era. I think maybe the production is more similar to like what stuff I was already like extremely familiar with. So I would say if you aren't already like versed, and if Blood, Sweat, and No Tears isn't like making you fall in love right away, like, don't give up. Try another one, because they have a lot of cool stuff throughout, and you might find that your entry point varies. Because mine did. Mine was not the album it was supposed to be.
All right. Glen Hansard, this week just wouldn't stop. Actually, all right, I'm going to say how I was actually confused because we woke up. Was that just yesterday? Yeah, it was Wednesday morning.
It was Wednesday morning.
We're talking, we as our part of our, what we do for a living is we post content on BrooklynVegan.com and Brooklyn Vegan socials. And so we wake up and we're checking the news, and the first thing we see is that Kavinsky has passed away. And then Andrew is like, I thought he was going to be like, here, I finished writing something about Kavinsky, but he shares a Glen Hansard article. And I was like, what? That just completely shocked out of nowhere. So one of those surreal and instantly like sad moment. I've been bummed ever since. Glen Hansard, they both passed away, I guess, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. The news broke back to back. There's probably like not a huge crossover of fans between French electronic artist Kavinsky, most known for the, you don't like that?
I mean, I bet they have more crossover. I get what you're saying, though. They're also both musicians extremely associated with popular movies.
Oh, that's a good connection. Yeah, all I'm saying is that was my way of disclaiming how almost bizarre it seemed to me to be using them in the same sentence going forward right now.
Also 6 years apart. Kavinsky was 50, Glen was 56, so both like far too young. Both seem, I mean, we know that Glen sadly passed in a motorbike crash. Kavinsky's cause of death not known.
I saw some things that they think it could have been a stroke.
Oh, right. Yeah. So, but in either way, like neither of these deaths is like you said, like it wasn't like they were struggling, with a years-long disease. It wasn't old age. So they're both shocking and sudden. And they're only 6 years apart. So, and both way too young.
And we didn't say, Lou Koller also way too young, still at the top of his game right before his cancer diagnosis. Like I said, Sick of It All were still amazing live right up till...
That's what I was trying to say, right up to the very end, yeah.
Lou said he couldn't do it, and...
He was 61.
61?
Yeah.
Wait, I think there's some conflicting information about his age.
Okay, Wikipedia says 61. So, but yeah, some sources erroneously state he was 59, according to Wikipedia. Anyway, either way, those are close enough. He was late 50s, early 60s. And yes, I know have moved on from Lou, but yeah, I mean, like I kind of tried to, the band live up until the very end, unbelievable. Their last album, which was also on Fat, Wake the Sleeping Dragon, 2018, now 8 years ago, but still new compared to a band whose first album came out in 89. Intense, really intense stuff. Just never, ever slowed down. But back to Glen Hansard and Kavinsky.
Yes. Well, I was going to say Jennifer Finch of L7, we lost to cancer at also age 59, just days before Lou Koller, we talked about last week. And I thought they were the same age, both cancer. But Jennifer also came out of nowhere. It was maybe 1 week after they revealed she had brain cancer.
Yeah, that one happened sadly fast.
Kavinsky, you said known for a movie, that would be the Drive soundtrack.
Yeah.
I was reminding myself because Kavinsky reached a new level of fame for that, but was like a regular in our Brooklyn Vegan universe in those years. We covered a Kavinsky show at Studio B, legendary indie sleaze dance venue, Studio B here in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, where, at the time, Kavinsky was like this rising French electronic artist who we had in headlines with Justice and Daft Punk and all the kind of electronic artists of that 2000s era. We didn't hear about Kavinsky much in more recent years. At least it wasn't. Well,
until the 2024 Paris Olympics. He played Night Call with Phoenix and with the vocalist who's on the song, I believe. And that like elevated the song to an even bigger level. Like it made it viral again and even bigger. And I mean, like among the tributes paid to him were like people in the French government. They, he really just became this French like icon, I guess, in after that Olympics performance. And the song was re-released. Like they did a version with Phoenix because of that performance being so popular and stuff like that. So that had like a second life. And actually, I just found this after he died, but Lady Gaga's most recent Instagram post, which is from May, she was talking about his influence on her.
Oh, wow.
She did a live album and film, for the Mayhem tour. And she did like some rearranged things. There was a part that there's like a interpolation of Night Call. So even this year, Lady Gaga, like obviously how you can't get much bigger, was bringing that song to people again and talking about his influence just a couple months ago. One of the people who paid tribute to him that I saw was The Weeknd. So he definitely like had this kind of like bigger than he even is kind of presence. And similarly, massive tributes for Glen Hansard too. No surprise, but two of the first ones I saw were Bono and Bruce Springsteen. I mean, like it doesn't get much bigger again. I mean, that was, and obviously I'm sure those are people that Glen looked up to.
And for sure had the chance to collaborate with through the years.
Yeah.
Also Cat Power, The Mountain Goats, Sharon Van Etten, Billie Eilish. Speaking of festivals, I found the Swell season. So Glen Hansard, let's talk about who Glen Hansard was for a minute. He came to prominence in his Irish band, The Frames, in the 90s. I was not aware of The Frames in the 90s. Personally, I was too busy listening to Sick of It All. But around in the early 2000s, like Brooklyn Vegan started 2004. I always put everything in that context. Around that time, I was very into indie rock. And I came to learn of The Frames, I would say, through this thing, because people whose musical taste I admired and who, listened to the same music that I now cared about, had a lot of great things to say about The Frames. I listened to The Frames. They were great. Glen Hansard starts doing solo stuff, and the Swell season soon after, that was like 2006, the Swell season. And I really fell in love with that first Swell season record, which then a year later, basically, I forget the specifics, but it basically became the Once movie. And I think, did the movie come first and then the Broadway show after the movie?
Probably.
Something like that. Anyway, I was all in at that point. And then through the years, over the past 20 years, Glen Hansard has continued doing things, releasing solo albums, collaborating, often in collaboration with, I'm just going to shout out Thomas Bartlett, aka Doveman, another artist who I was very into in around 2004, 5, 6, who is this musician who now works with everybody, who became associated with the National and has plays piano on so many different things. And he became one of Glen Hansard's major collaborators. My condolences to Glen's family and friends, including Thomas. He just posted a touching tribute on social media where he said Glen played at his wedding, played at his father's funeral. I don't want to get that wrong, but read that tribute. So yeah, I've loved Glen's music, and Glen is an amazing live performer. Here's kind of this is weird/dumb coincidence. I don't know when I had last said Glen's name. He wasn't on my radar in the past few weeks, months, whatever it is, but I did bring him up just days earlier because we were talking about that Greg Freeman show we saw at Union Pool last week. You were not there, but I was. And one of the things I was doing at that show, for whatever reason, I was saying how Greg Freeman has this really fun band. I was trying to think who the various people in his band look like. I don't usually play this game, but for some reason, this performance inspired me to be like, that band member looks like so-and-so, that band member looks like so-and-so, probably just because they kind of look like different people. And I decided that Greg Freeman was Glen Hansard, a young, chiseled Glen Hansard. I did tell you that. And then you thought I was dumb for telling you that. And then days later, Glen Hansard. Sucks. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah, we posted a video last night I was looking to kind of remind myself too, the history. We have this essentially 22-year diary, Brooklyn Vegan, that I can look back and remind myself of many milestones and moments through the years and when things happened and shows I went to. And one thing I saw is when the Swell season, at the height of their popularity back in 2008, played as a large font band on Coachella 2008. I don't know where the Swell season would have been if they played Coachella now on the font. They probably shouldn't play Coachella now. Actually, I do feel like they reunited in recent years. They might have played some fests.
I remember that because that would have been the year after Once, and I feel like Once turned Glen into someone that people not tapped into alternative music knew about. So I wonder if it's just a popular enough thing that they still could pull it off. But I feel like, I don't know, that was a while ago. But back then, I can see why they would have been so big. I mean, I was hearing about him from people I never would have thought to bring him up. Who never would have brought up the Frames, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, he's everywhere.
But it's also interesting to see him so high up on the Friday. If you look at the poster separated by day, he's almost as big font as you can be under the headliner of the Swell season, as are the Breeders. And it's like they're on the same line. Anyway, the video we posted in 2008 and I reposted on Instagram yesterday is of him / the Swell season covering Pixies at that Coachella, and he dedicated it to Kim, who was playing, same day in the Breeders. So, yeah, anyway, made me tear up a little.
Yeah.
And go listen to the Frames. The Frames first album, really good. I've been having that, I've been listening to that again recently. Second album. I don't know what's up with the Frames first album, but Fitzcarraldo from 1996. But all the Frames albums. Frames were solid band. And you brought up Kavinsky being a huge deal in France, where he's from. And Glen Hansard is definitely a huge deal in Ireland, where he's from as well. The Frames.
Definitely.
I'm not thinking of the examples, but like I know there's sometimes you're like, oh, this band who was kind of sort of big, kind of known, one-hit wonder in the US is like an arena band in their home country of Canada. I don't know if the Frames are that, because I just don't know. But I do think the Frames are a way bigger deal.
Yeah,
there.
and Glen,
and it was
general,
Dublin
I think,
that he died. He was on a motorcycle accident. You have any parting words?
No, rest in peace, Glen Hansard.
If you want to watch Once again, I don't think that Once is on any of the streaming services right now, but you could rent it probably for cheap on like Amazon or anywhere. What is streaming on streaming services, though, unrelated to Glen Hansard, is but another music movie that we've talked about before, Mile and Kicks, the movie set in the Montreal music scene, which there's a past episode of BV Interviews podcast as well, where Bill talks to the director and maker of that movie. This is a movie that has the band Islands in it, which has original music by Tops, where it's about a music journalist documenting trying to become a writer, wanting to write a book about Alanis Morissette, and working for a music magazine and hanging out with a band, and all in the actual Montreal indie scene of the 2000s. Coming of age story. That's Smile and Kicks is now streaming on Netflix. I finally watched it because of that. So I hadn't seen it back when it was in theaters and Bill did that interview, but now I have actually watched it. How
does it compare to Almost Famous? I haven't seen it, but you just made me think about Almost Famous the way you described it. It's absolutely
referencing Almost Famous. Yeah, no, it's not denying the many things that it's trying to be. Rom-com / almost famous
of the blog era. Instead of the like Rolling Stone print magazine, edgy new rock mag era.
I mean, don't get your hopes up that it's Almost Famous though. But yes, it's it's a nice little watch for. I wouldn't recommend Mile and Kicks to like anybody. I'm not going to tell my mom or my brother to go watch Mile and Kicks like I would tell everybody they need to see Obsession, except you who didn't like it. But if you're like interested enough in music to listen to this podcast, you probably will at least find Mile and Kicks relevant, That's it. And it's on Netflix. So if you have Netflix. Anyway, autotune is back in the news. What's up with that, right? We talked about the Strokes album last week. I'm sure, as everybody is saying, did you see? Here's some headlines. Ready? Autotunes news. Searching Google News. The Strokes, Reality Awaits, succumbs to death by autotune. The Strokes lose themselves in a sea of autotune on Reality Awaits. The Strokes, Reality Awaits review, autotuned and on autopilot. First, no, that doesn't count. The Strokes push past abnormal on wildly engaging auto-tuned Reality Awaits. The Strokes Reality Awaits, a grower that might be a classic if you can stand the auto-tune. Anyway, I'll stop. Anthony Fantano also did his review of the album, as he does on YouTube.
Anthony Fantano, who is name dropped on the album.
Oh, that's true. There's a diss track. Yeah, no, Anthony Fantano was dissed on the album. That's right. And he reviews the album with auto-tune on. I don't know if Julian will re-diss him for that or what. This came out the same day as Charlie XCX last week, which, would we say there's auto-tune on Charlie's album?
Well, but also there's less than Brat. And I saw someone tweeted like, the Strokes stole all of Charlie's auto-tune.
Oh yeah, there you go. And then less relevant to this podcast, but Avenged Sevenfold released an EP. Avenged Sevenfold, who are out now on an arena tour with Good Charlotte, released a new EP, a 4-song EP, which is also heavy on the autotune. And you're like, this is not that interesting, like autotune.
Like, finally, someone is comparing the Strokes to Avenged Sevenfold. Wait, since you did your thing right here, I'm going to read some headlines. Avenged Sevenfold drops new EP Statica featuring synths, aggressive autotune, and electronica dance beats. Avenged Sevenfold Static EP is a goofy auto-tuned mess and exactly the kind of risk more big metal bands should be taking. I actually found out about this from Fire Tools, who has a really cool album recently out and also been working with No Joy recently. But I'm looking for it. Fire Tools tweeted like a screenshot of all these YouTubers reacting to, here it is. And the headlines there are Avenged Sevenfold Static EP review. This is legit the worst thing this band has ... Avenged Sevenfold Static EP review. Where has my Avenged Sevenfold gone? Avenged Sevenfold just released what? And this one is this butterfly meme, and it's got like the picture of the new EP, and it says the meme text is this Avenged Sevenfold?
Can you tell us what Avenged Sevenfold used to sound like?
Well, Avenged Sevenfold were a metalcore band at first, and then the singer, I believe, had like vocal issues and had to stop screaming, and they became more of just sort of like a heavy metal hard rock band, which made them a lot more popular. But my take is, I'm like, if you're like, hey, what just happened to Avenged Sevenfold? I'm like, that's what I was saying in 2005 when they stopped screaming. But I think this EP is kind of fun. Maybe it's because I have like less, I don't know, skin in the game for Avenged Sevenfold in 2026 than the Strokes. I'm like, this isn't a mess. This is like the most interesting thing I've heard from them in a long time.
And that's kind of Fire Tools' point as well.
Yeah,
right?
they were like, that's because like I feel like it's a little bit like hyper pop almost. Like I think it's not, the Strokes album is just like a Strokes album that uses autotune as an instrument. I don't care. I have nothing against the autotune on Reality Waits. But I do want to point out that it is different than using autotune because you're like, oh, I feel like I can't sing on key. They're using it as an instrument, the way Bon Iver and Kanye and James Blake and those kind of artists have done. And Charlie has done. So I think that's fine if they want to do that. But other than there being autotune, it's not like it's drastically different. The Avenged Sevenfold EP, it's kind of like, holy shit, this doesn't sound anything like the last release by this band, I think. I mean, again, I'm less caught up on them, but I'm sure it's drastic. It doesn't sound like I have or anything I've heard from them. Whereas like there are still songs on Reality Awaits that you're like, oh yeah, this is the band that made Is This It? Is This It, which turned 25 this week. The Australian release date turned 25. It actually came out in America in October, but now that we celebrate anniversaries, based on what we see on the internet, we may forget that Americans didn't have this record in July of 2001. They had it in October. Any case, yeah, the music that Avenged Sevenfold was making in the early 2000s is drastically different than their new EP. The Strokes, I think, less so. But anyway, yeah, autotune in the news again.
Auto-tune the news. You just brought that back to me. Whatever happened to them, right?
That was a thing.
I love that. That they were good. That was, what was the big one was the hide your kids, hide your wife. They did
yeah,
that,
yep.
right?
That was a big like. Was that a Vine or like, I don't even.
That was. I don't think it was a Vine, but it might have even just been popular on YouTube. And Auto-Tune the News was kind of like their channel, their thing. It really went viral with that one, but they had so many good ones. But then there was also a band. It was like an actual band. You could go see them play shows. I can't remember. It wasn't just like singing Auto-Tune the News. Anyway, that's, that you just accidentally brought that back.
You know what definitely has no auto-tune? Alice in Chains' Unplugged album.
You sure about that?
Well,
is it possible they put it through some?
I guess primitive? I'm just commenting on if it's unplugged, then it's like supposed to be all raw and stuff. Point. But also, it came out before the Cher song that popularized autotune, so it probably.
I was wondering if we were going to mention Cher. That's where my mind goes.
I guess we've done it before, right? Didn't this anyway? That song is an example of using autotune to fix vocals, which makes no sense because Cher sings better than most people. Anyway, Alice in Chains' Unplugged album is, I would say, a gem of a lost era where sort of like unplugging, having all the mistakes in there, etc. It's like this was all cherished about, the MTV Unplugged series actually does still exist, but you won't be stoked if I tell you some of the recent ones who have done it. But it turned 30 this week. And what is it? Back on vinyl for the first time in some impressive amount of years, right? Do you know the answer?
I don't know the exact answer.
Well, it's back on vinyl. And there is an exclusive variant in the Brooklyn Vegan shop. We are very stoked
we're really
to have that because
about that.
Can I speak for all of us? One of our favorite albums ever, right? I mean, Alice in Chains Unplugged. We all think it's a classic.
I don't know where I rank it, but it's Alice in Chains in general, one of my favorite bands ever. Definitely.
I think this might be my favorite Alice in Chains album.
Is Nirvana? How does it rank against Nirvana Unplugged?
It's not as good as Nirvana's MTV Unplugged, but it's in both of those. Nirvana's is my favorite Unplugged album, and if you know how much I like Nirvana, you wouldn't be surprised to hear that. You'd be like, oh yeah, go figure. But both got to be top 5 for me, and I would probably you kind of got to. Nirvana paved the way for this one a little bit. I think I'm sure MTV saw the success of it and wanted another grunge band, and I would imagine that the way Alice in Chains did this probably somewhat inspired by Nirvana's performance. Also there was Nirvana's was like people have called it like Kurt throwing his own funeral. This one was not as that close to Lane Staley's death, but he was like, it was a tough time for him, and he was dealing with heroin addiction, and I think maybe Jerry Cantrell was also sick at the time or something. But there was like this album also kind of had that like raw, open wounds kind of feel that Nirvana, like very literally, like the way Nirvana's did too. I mean, I know that obviously it's not a studio album. Obviously, it lacks the heavy guitars that make Alice in Chains. But I kind of think it's my favorite thing to listen to by them.
Nirvana Unplugged and Alice in Chains Unplugged, maybe every Unplugged, both recorded in New York City, which is probably because MTV was here. But Nirvana's was recorded in like studio place, Sony Studios or something, maybe in Manhattan. Alice in Chains was recorded right here at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. Fun fact.
That is really cool.
I wish I was at that show. I've been in that venue many times, so it's just even wilder to think when you're listening that it was in there.
Yeah, and it's like, obviously I wasn't at it either, but similar to the Nirvana one, like it is so just, it's so intimate that like, I don't know, like again, like it's a little bit, it feels a little bit like a lost art kind of thing, because you do feel like you're up close and personal with it. And I'm like, I was listening to it for the first time in a while to prepare for talking about it. And I was like, I kind of forgot, like I was making me so nostalgic because it's kind of been a minute since there's been like a goosebump inducing live recording that's been so popular the way this one and Nirvana's. And, it's like,
I'm pretty sure Fish live at Madison Square Garden from yesterday was released. You could listen to that.
I guess that would scratch the itch I'm looking for.
I did notice that they release like the live album like after every single show, and they've been at like multiple nights of Madison Square Gardens.
And even if they didn't release it, the whole thing would be on like, the places online where jam band fans send each other zip files of.
Why let the fans do it when you could just release it
You're
yourself?
Gonna do it anyway, exactly.
All right, sorry. Go on, Alice in Chains.
No, I mean I think it's a lost. It felt to me like a bygone era, and so it made me very nostalgic, and it was bittersweet in that way. And it holds up. It's incredible.
How does it compare to the Flory live album?
Well, it's different. I mean, the Flory live album I think is really cool, and I do think there are good live albums that still come out.
Actually, Glen Hansard's most recent 2 albums, which I have also been listening to this week, are studio made live in front of an audience albums. So they're kind of unplugged.
Well, I'm not trying to be all like, remember when, but I'm just, when was the last time that you remember like a genuinely massive.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah,
but
it felt, and it's like, it's not something that has to stop. I mean, like MTV is not a television station that people turn on to watch music anymore. But like the concept of doing an entire acoustic concert and making it an album and film doesn't seem totally nuts to still happen. But I don't know why like no one's really kind of doing it. It's like it, you know, it felt so like to hear these heavy bands like Nirvana and Alice in Chains do this entire acoustic concert. Like it's like this whole other side of this band. And it's like,
definitely. And the acoustic thing is obviously a big part of what makes those albums different for those bands.
Like, I guess there's like Tiny Desk like comes close in a way, but like it's not as long. And sometimes it doesn't require you to like perform in any certain way.
There's always, you can't take the gimmick out of Tiny Desk though, you know? It's
right. But like, you know, where's the Turnstile Unplugged album? You know, like, can we hear what would it be like if Turnstile were told like you got to give us like a 12-song set list, all acoustic guitars, bass, and drums, and you got to make the perfect set? Because like that, what Nirvana did, right, is they turned it into like an art project, and because most people went to MTV Unplugged and they played their most popular songs, and Nirvana were like, we're gonna pick the songs that sound best in an acoustic format. And so they kind of like avoided a lot of their bigger hits they didn't think would sound best. And I mean, it does make me wonder if Alice in Chains maybe took a page out of their book, because they didn't play Man in the Box, for example. You know, I feel like the best song on Unplugged by Alice in Chains is Wood. And that is the song that was perfect to be performed acoustic. And they knew that. And there's a reason that version is like, I think there are people who might put that version above the studio version. I might do that. So it'd be interesting to hear, like, you know, okay, get Turnstile playing a whole acoustic thing. What songs are they going to pick? They're probably not going to pick like, you know, Blackout. Wouldn't really work.
And I do think, sorry, I'm bringing it back to the Glen Hansard albums. His two most recent albums are Don't Settle, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And one's called Transmissions East, one's called Transmission West. And I do think part of what makes these albums so special is part of what Glen was going for in these two albums. So I'm going to read you his quote. They're both kind of compilations. Rate Your Music considers them live albums. They're not under his studio albums and or comps. They're listing them as live. But he says, I've always been more comfortable on stage than in a studio. I love making records. I love the process. And he recorded these in a studio, but he invited an audience. But the songs live before an audience. A song needs witnesses. It's where I feel like I can really grab hold of it and know it the way it's meant to be known. So to record this album in front of an audience was incredibly gratifying. It gives the songs a new lease of life. One always hopes the songs will land, take root, and mean something new. Beauty is in the ear of the be-hearer.
Ooh.
So there you go. And I think that's, I'll just leave it at that. What other new things do we have out this week?
My favorite song of the week is the new Judiciary. They have an EP coming. It's their first release in 3 years. Single is called Wall of Skulls. And if you're unfamiliar, Judiciary are from the Texas metal hardcore scene. And I've written this on BrooklynVegan.com many times, but there's just something in the water in the Texas metal hardcore scene, because it is, I think, what makes it unique to every other regional heavy music scene in the country is it is the one scene where metal and hardcore are truly inseparable, and the line between them ceases to exist almost all the time. So did you share one of those bands where you're like, is this the best thrash metal band or the best hardcore band? And the answer is yes. And this new single is a perfect example of that. It's just like evil riffs that the evilest of thrash and even death metal bands would employ, with just like, it's absolutely still a hardcore song. And it's so good. Highly recommended for fans of both hardcore and metal, and especially fans of when you can't tell the difference between hardcore and metal. Killer song.
And I was just looking back to the last time I saw Judiciary. It was, I think, 2023, the end of 2023, on the most perfect bill that sums up also what you're just talking about. By the way, I see that I told you at the time that they were so good, that their set was amazing. This was the lineup: Stabbed, Tribal Gaze, Judiciary, 200 Stab Wounds, Frozen Soul. Amazing show.
Perfect. And Frozen Soul and Tribal Gaze are all Texas, right? Is the whole thing Texas?
I don't think the whole thing, but yeah, that's
Tribal Gaze and Frozen Soul are also. It's like they could be death metal or they could be hardcore depending on how you squint. I will say it's a bit of a lighter week for new albums, but as always, find some stuff to write about. And in notable releases on BrooklynVegan.com, there are write-ups on the new Shearling, which is the new band with two members of Sprain who broke up after releasing an incredible album on the Flenser. They self-releasing the new material, I believe. Mallory Hawk, who has played in a bunch of indie bands, including Trace Mountains and Customer, were both Level Up related bands, New York based, but Mallory, who's now living in Philly, and this is her first solo record, and it's really cool. There's a new Arca, the last and posthumously released album from Ed Askew, a legendary, cultishly loved folk singer whose career began in the 60s. He went into obscurity for a while, brought back to life in the 2000s by the freak folk movement, and this is his last record, and it's got really cool guests like Sharon Van Etten and Bill Callahan and William Tyler. Actually, side note, timing is just strange, but another kind of crazy news in this crazy news week was that Linda Perhacs, who's also a psychedelic folk singer from the early 70s who went into obscurity and who was rediscovered in the freak folk era, was reported missing, but we are happy to say that she was now reported found and safe. So thank God for that, because Linda is one of the best. And similar to Ed, she started releasing music again after being rediscovered. Really, really awesome. Huge Linda Perhacs fan, huge Ed Askew fan. I haven't seen Linda live, but I saw Ed live once in a church. Really cool. And it was actually surprise released last week, but because I missed it was semi-surprise release, but I missed the teasers. I didn't know it was going to be out, so I didn't mention it on the podcast. So No Pressure's second album, NP Style, is out now, and it just sounds like 90s pop punk, like Blink-182 and Newfound Glory, and but doesn't sound like Green Day, who their movie is out now, Nimrods, as well as the soundtrack, which has some Green Day music on it.
Which is why we keep seeing Billy Joe Armstrong pop up in weird videos and places.
Right. Yeah, he's doing a good job of raising awareness. Not that Green Day are ever hard to see. They're always everywhere and still massive.
He played a pop-up show on top of an ice cream truck the other day, which I guess was a promo for the movie. And he has this cover band called the Cover-Ups. Who else is in that? Anyone? Is it other Green Day?
I don't remember.
Oh, yeah. So he fronts a cover band called the Cover-Ups, and they played at least two. Our friend Anna from Alternative Press was at one of those shows, which was a Marshall-sponsored party somewhere in California. And then they also played something associated with San Diego Comic-Con, where, super interestingly, Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden joined them on stage to cover David Bowie.
The most interesting part about this to me is that Bruce Dickinson is like famously a hater of punk.
Okay, so he's like suddenly, I wonder if what was he doing there? I didn't figure it out. Was he he might have been at Comic-Con for another reason. Iron Maiden definitely seemed like a band who would be promoting things at Comic-Con, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
So, I don't know.
But yeah, I'm surprised that he doesn't like look down on Green Day. But good for him. Glad he got over his punk phobia. Other honorable mentions is there's a new Ariana Grande album out. And there's the new Fuckers remix EP called New York, as in NU. And the three remixers are all New York legends: Junior Sanchez, Justin Strauss, and Eli Escobar. Also, more reviews in Indie Basement by Bill on BrooklynVegan.com, including, perhaps most notably, at least in my opinion, the first Durruti Column album in 16 years, which not only is it their first in forever, but it's following this like kind of little resurgence for them. Blood Orange sampled them. Frank Ocean has name dropped them in recent years. Harry Styles has he included a tribute to them as part of when he curated the Meltdown Festival. I mean, that's realistically like the biggest of all of these. So it's really cool, I think, that they're back and they have this new record. And other cool stuff reviewed include the new Trash Can Sinatras, which has appearances from members of Camera Obscura and Scritti Politti. New Cleaners from Venus, which To quote Bill, it's kind of the UK equivalent of Robert Pollard, Guided by Voices, or R. Stevie Moore. Just an endless
R. Stevie Moore, who gets mentioned multiple times in that Mylan Kicks movie.
Oh, cool. Yeah, look at that. R. Stevie Moore is one of one. But yeah, just an endless well of lo-fi stuff. Inspired. Bill says Kinks Beatles inspired earworms. So in case you're unfamiliar, that sounds up your alley. New Shearwater, another remix released, this one of Ulrika Spacek, and Family Stereo, which is the project of Blake Watt, who is the son of Everything But the Girls, Tracy Thorn, and Ben Watt. So yeah, those are some albums that are out this week.
All right, should we do the news?
Let's do it.
First of all, on the new episode of the BV Interviews podcast, Bill talks to multi-genre artist Taja Cheek, aka Lorraine, that's L'Rain, on the occasion of her fourth album. She also tells us on that episode about the pros and cons of being tagged in an experimental musician, playing Wilco's Solid Sound Festival this summer, playing with Tortoise in New York City, fall tour plans, and more. Haley Williams played an insane guest-filled set at Newport Folk Fest, a festival known for its many surprises and collaborations. Some of the collabs we've seen before, like This Is Lorelei. Some I can't remember if we saw before, like Lucy Dacus. One that really stuck out as I think new and amazing was Carly from Wednesday screaming next to Haley.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Jenny Lewis was there, which they had done at some other point, but
yes.
And Haley was a surprise guest at last year's Newport Folk Festival. To your point about that it's known for this, but yeah, I mean her set list was, even in the context of Newport, so unique and crazy because it was like almost every song had a guest, and often doing the guest song, sometimes doing Haley's songs, sometimes doing a cover. So it was really like, you know, I wasn't there, you weren't there, but I think I watched all the videos and it was pretty nuts.
Speaking of nuts, Knocked Loose and Denzel Curry played a surprise and very sweaty show at a Brooklyn skate park this week indoors ahead of their upcoming tour together. First time they played their song together.
And it was right after Denzel just did a couple appearances with Pain of Truth, another hardcore band, including at, again, Warped Tour, third Warped Tour mention of the episode.
Oh, yeah. And Pain of Truth, who just announced a new album.
Yeah, I like that new single a lot, Unforgiven. So does Denzel Curry. He tweeted that in response to a Needle Drop tweet that he's been listening to that song and the last Drain record. I guess Denzel went to Warped Tour and had a good time seeing Pain of Truth, playing with Pain of Truth and seeing Drain. He must have seen them. But he also said something that he was like, I might do a hardcore tape. So I think that'd be cool.
I'm waiting for a Sick of It All cover now. All right.
Ooh.
Another kind of heavy band, Neurosis, played their first show in 7 years and their first with Isis Sumac's Aaron Turner in the band. In the videos we saw, they looked as intense as we remember them. They've got a few more shows coming up and we're hoping they'll keep adding more. Tomahawk's first tour in 13 years has been underway and it hit New York City this week, which was actually shortly after singer Mike Patton's even more classic band, Faith No More, officially released their first shows in 11 years. They teased us like a month ago at this point. That was a long break. That was a long time between tease and actual announcement, but it's finally here. But so far, they've just announced shows in Australia and New Zealand with System of a Down. Oh, that also makes me think they'll probably be on, what's the festival that System of a Down usually plays?
Sick New World?
Yeah, Sick New World, right? Faith No More, get shoe in for that.
That makes sense.
Anyway, we hope Faith No More announces many shows. This has also been a big Mike Patton week for me. I was bummed to miss that Tomahawk show. I really wanted to be there, but I couldn't. And I just strangely, coincidentally, have been on like a Mr. Bungle listening kick this week. Is that another podcast? Some other podcast did some like a huge deep dive into Mr. Bungle. It inspired me to listen. I think it was Requiem podcast. Speaking of System of a Down's Serge Tankian is also on the just announced Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine solo album, which also features Kneecap. That comes out in September. Oh, and we've got an exclusive red and black striped vinyl variant of that in the BB shop. And Tom isn't the only guitarist of a famous heavy band to announce a solo album this week that we are excited to have an exclusive vinyl variant of. And just kind of excited in general, I guess. Yeah, we're excited. Anything Black Sabbath related, we're excited. Black Sabbath's Tony Iommi, who actually, fun fact, had Serge on his 2000 debut solo album, announced his first in 21 years. So when Tony did his solo album back then, he had like a different singer on every track. A super impressive list of Henry Rollins,
Dave Grohl, Billy Corgan,
Pete
Peter
Steele, Typo Negative, like a million different singers. For this new Ozzy, for this new solo album, which is his first music since Ozzy's death, he just has one singer for the entire band, and also one drummer and one bassist. He has a new he put together a band.
He has band. Is what we're trying to say.
He has a band.
He's got a band.
It's a Tony Iommi album. It's his name. Joyce Manor are headlining an arena again, sort of. Again, a bigger arena this time.
Technically, their second arena, but this time it's the Kia Forum, which is last time was the Long Beach Arena, which is like a smaller arena. This is like the arenas that basketball teams and pop stars frequently perform. Although the Kia Forum does not currently host a basketball team. I think it used to have the LA Lakers. In any case, this is like LA's MSG. Right. It's there. It's the biggest show they've ever played. And yeah, hometown area with the aforementioned Hot Mulligan providing direct support. Hot Mulligan just had Joyce Manor opening their tour. So, but this happens in the punk scene, and the metal scene where you open for a band, they open for you. And then Tiger's Jaw and Origami Angel are on the show. I'm just so happy for Joyce Manor that they can headline an arena. Happy for the scene that this bill is happening in an arena show. I think it's well deserved.
Not quite at arenas yet. We talked last week about seeing First Aid Back's first New York City show. The Ritornello Forum played their first New York City show earlier this week. We missed that one, or Andrew and I did anyway, but it looked very fun. And now Race Course, who are sort of related to First Day Back, announced that they're coming to the East Coast for a short tour too. Exciting things happening in the sixth wave emo scene.
No, it's the fifth. It's the third wave of second wave emo. I mean, you can't say that out loud and not laugh at yourself. But it is like new crop of bands who are bringing second wave emo back.
So wait, waves aren't in wave doesn't imply chronological order?
No, it does. That's why it's stupid and also funny.
Okay.
But I feel ridiculous calling it either of those things. I don't know if I like calling it sixth wave emo.
Is there a sixth wave?
I don't know. It's too complicated.
Is the fifth wave over?
How come emo though? Like emo and ska are always like waves. Like no one says that like Drain is like seventh wave hardcore. They're just hardcore.
That's a good point. Well, maybe we need to start calling them that so it's easier. I
think we need to just like axe the wave narrative on emo. I think it's just like it's once you're saying fifth and sixth, it's too much. It's just emo is a thing that existed a long time. Like imagine if MJ Lenderman was like ninth wave indie rock. I mean, come on. Like it's just they are the new crop of bands. First Day Back, Ritornello Forum, Race Course, who AEIOU, who are from New York, who just played their first show, opening that Ritornello Forum show, whose new EP is sick. They're all bringing back second wave emo, and most of it's on the West Coast. Some of it's in New York City, and it's cool stuff. And we don't need to figure out what wave of emo it's part of, but it sounds a whole lot like the 90s stuff.
Second wave punk band, Rocket from the Crypt. I don't know. Which wave are they? Is there a wave? Is there punk?
Well, see, the problem is I can't, like, you get me going. I'm going to be like, well, I mean, Drive Like Jehu is like kind of part of emo, so like, but Rocket from the Crypt would at least be the third or fourth wave of punk.
Oh, third. Right? Okay.
Right.
They're legends,
you got like
nonetheless.
Legends nonetheless, and lifers similar to Sick of It All, who have always been around. And
but Rocket from the Crypt not around as often.
And in the case of whatever you're about to say is less about new material, more about old material.
Rocket from the Crypt have announced some select shows with cool openers, including the Get Up Kids, Ceremony,
second wave emo legends,
Man or Astro Man, and more. And they've also unearthed some early recordings from the writing of Scream, Dracula Scream, which they are going to release on a tour-only vinyl, only available at these shows. And they're going to be playing material from that as well. Back to heavy metal for a second. King Diamond and Andy LaRocque, the band's guitarist since 1985, have, quote, parted ways. In somewhat related news, the bassist on Tony Iommi of Black Sabbath's new solo album is Becky Baldwin, who some might recognize as the current bassist for the King Diamond-fronted Merciful Fate, who have been back in recent years. I saw her playing with Merciful Fate. We mentioned Tony Iommi chose a bassist. Now you know who it is. The beloved metal punk venue St. Vitus is coming back, as previously mentioned, and they've been adding a bunch of shows since we last spoke. So go check out their full calendar and stay tuned for more additions. They announced some huge shows. They announced Dillinger Escape Plan, which sold out like probably immediately, and the new. Anyway, there's a lot.
$10 Terror Show, which probably also sold out. Yeah, it did. It did sell out. By the time you hear this, there might be more than we knew about when we recorded, because they've been adding them pretty frequently.
Dive have announced a new album called Zirp. Is that right? Zirp? Z-I-R-P exclamation point. Produced by Charlie XCX collaborator A.G. Cook. Dive also have tour dates coming up with some hardcore bands, with some emo bands, with some First Day Back. All right. They have it's the Basement tour, right? Dive are opening for Basement. Is that the order?
Correct.
Those shows have crazy lineups. So I was looking at the LA poster, which is like a Sound and Fury presented show, and it's Basement, Dive, First Day Back, High Viz, like all on the same show. High Viz, who you should also watch at Lollapalooza this weekend.
Basement definitely curated an insane cast of openers for this tour. Kudos to them for that. It's really, really like just cool to see the combination of acts, and you can see how they all musically and ethos wise tie to what Basement, like various things Basement have done. So it's cool. It's a cool stuff.
Staying in that scene, Harm's Way, Twitching Tongues, Weekend Nachos, and other bands have announced a tribute show to Bo happening in, Bo of Harm's Way, who passed away earlier this year, suddenly, surprisingly, sadly. Tribute show is happening in Chicago, which was his home, on August 29th. Momma, as we said, are also at Lollapalooza this weekend. We are now ending the show right back where we started. That Lollapalooza show is also a start of a tour for them, so check out those dates if you want to catch Momma. We're also happy to announce that we have new vinyl pressings of 2 of Momma's records, which are shipping immediately, announced today and on sale in the Brooklyn Vegan shop at shop.brooklynvegan.com, where you can also still grab our exclusive anniversary red variant of the new Alice in Chains Unplugged pressing. I got to get my copy of that.
I still got my CD copy, and I hear CDs are back. So
CDs are back. You could
not trying to sway anyone from purchasing the record. I'm just saying
we also have it on CD.
Oh, okay, there you go. Go get it on CD because they're coming back, and the vinyl, But I'm just bragging that I have it on CD because now that's cool. 10 years ago, you'd be like, "Whoa, what are you doing with that plastic MP3?"
On that note, thanks again for listening. Subscribe. Talk to you next week.
Thanks for tuning in. Dave and I will be back every Friday morning with new episodes of BV Weekly. And in between the episodes, you can always get much more from us at brooklynvegan.com, on all of our social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can pick up records from us at shop.brooklynvegan.com. And if you like what you hear, tell your friends about us, subscribe to the show, give us a good rating. All that little stuff goes a really long way. It really helps us a lot, and we really appreciate it. So until then, thank you again, and see you next time.